What prompted someone to draw these ship scenes and Arabic texts on the wall of the Tower of the Lord of Benavites? There are presences here, as well as shadows, dangers, battles, revolts, ages of splendor, persecution, mass human exoduses. All this and more are recounted here by the Benavites Tower. When water is time and time is water. The Benavites Tower, the titan of the valley. The genesis of the Tower of Benavites is, in a sense, an enigma. Today's tower features elements that dated to the end of the 15th century, yet there are no records today that prove this. This structure is a combination of different construction techniques and materials, such as the Valencian rammed earth method, masonry, mortar and reeds, and repurposed building stone from Roman buildings. It was a Renaissance tower where people could live, but also an impenetrable castle for an uncertain period, marked by revolt, the threat of pirate attacks, and social upheaval in the Kingdom of Valencia. Located in the valley of Segó, Benavites is strategically located between the towns of Almenara and Sagunto along the Roman Via Augusta. The Font de Quart or Quart Spring is a continuous source of water, the liquid of life for the surrounding farmland. "2,000 years ago, Roman Valencians even then understood the value of water, and that's why they made sure it was distributed equally among citizens using a water clock or clepsydra. Centuries later, the men in charge of these waters, or els ollers, used water clocks or ollas following Roman tradition. The Font de Quart water distribution system is complex and ages old. Since the 15th century, there are records showing how water use was regulated. These were known as las concordias, which describe how it worked. Other characteristic features of this water system were the SUBT and the sistars, which are removable sluice gates that divide the water channels while enabling water to flow at any level. In the 16th century, a water gate is added, which is made with an opening known as la recocha to meet the basic needs of the towns and ensure a continuous supply of water. Since the Iberian period, Vall de Segó has been home to many cultures. This area was part of the Ager Saguntorium. Later, during the Islamic period, the valley was dotted with many hamlets that wisely governed the territory.
حصاد هذه السنة جيد يا زوجتي العزيزة.
الحمد لله. الحمد لله.
فضل من الله. الحمد لله.
In fact, Benavites is an Islamic hamlet, and its place name comes from the Arabic Ibn Abidis, son of Abidis. After the Christian reconquest led by James I, Benavites has had many owners. The Jewish Yusuf de Mofla owned the town when the Christians arrived, until James I transferred the rights to the town to Gonzalo Ruiz de Udala in June 1238. A Gonzalo Ruiz de Udala, donus in Alquería in Benavites in Valle de Segó. From that moment on, the town passed through the hands of many owners. In 1437, it came into the hands of Rodrigo Royce de Corella, who is believed to be the one who gave the Tower of Benavites the shape we see today. Some of the tower's features offer veritable testimonies to history, for they speak of the surroundings and the period in which it was built. On the facade, there are Roman blocks and Jewish tombstones, which were repurposed and used for the wall. The Hebrew tombstones were taken from the Movedre cemetery, which means that they were placed here after 1492, when the Jews were expelled from Spain. This stone, along with that of Béjar in Malaga, is the only complete tombstone of its kind in Spain. The inscription reads, "Sepulchral stela of the Honorable Jamila, may she rest in paradise, wife of the distinguished Abraham Lachim. Watch over her, my rock and redeemer." Although its previous design is unknown, at the beginning of the 16th century, the Corella family, lords of Cocentaina, Benavites, Almenara, and other towns, possibly started remodeling work on the tower. There is a reasonable resemblance between it and the towers of the Palau de Cocentaina. The structure draws directly from the style of Tuscan Renaissance architecture. The upper part of the turret, with its defensive matriculation, is suggestive of Florentine and Sienese architecture. Inside there are features of the period which take us back to the Renaissance. The decorative plasterwork on the first floor doors and windows. The use of ceramic tiles from Manises designed in the late 15th century, popularly known as escarabats or small scarab beetles, and ossettes, little bones. This aesthetic resemblance has its logic, for the Corella lords were in contact with Mediterranean Italy, bringing with them the artistic influences we observe throughout the tower. The reason why the tower had to be a defensive structure was possibly owing to the times, which were marked by social conflicts such as the revolt of the Brotherhoods, pirate attacks, and Islamic uprisings. In the 16th century, the rights of Islamic peoples were curtailed, and their beliefs, language, and customs were made illegal, which put further strains on society.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق.
¿Qué esteu fent ahí? Què esteu llegint?
اغرب عني يا رجل، هذا ليس شأنك.
No entenc lo que dius, però no m'agrada.
اتركني، هذا ديني وأنا حر فيه.
They were exploited as cheap labor until they were expelled in 1609. This led to the depopulation of the Kingdom of Valencia and the Moorish villages in particular. In 1610, Gaston Royce de Corella granted the town charter of Benavites to the new inhabitants of the abandoned lands, seeking economic and social recovery. In 1615, Jerónimo Royce de Corella sold Benavites and other possessions to Pedro Exarch de Belvis, first Marquis of Benavites. Sometime later, the palace of the Marquis of Benavites was built, and the importance of the tower diminished. After this period, we lose track of the tower. If we travel back to its origins, the Benavites Tower was a titan among towers and a demonstration of the power of the aristocracy. Not only did it allow them to look out for enemies approaching from land and sea, it was also equipped to resist sieges and attacks, and could also serve as a basic dwelling. We know that in the subsoil next to the tower, there are elements from another Islamic structure, possibly connected to the preparation of leather, such as vats as well as a cistern. We have not been able to prove the existence of a previous tower. The ceramic tiles, construction techniques, and plasterwork are from the late 15th or early 16th century. The Hebrew tombstone suggests that its construction came after 1492. The tower is architecturally similar to the Palau de Cocentaina, renovated at the end of the 15th century and owned by the same family. It was part of an architectural grouping of buildings along with the palace of the Marquis of Belgida. However, this tower is the oldest. This tower's architectural style is the result of a single design around one key element, its spiral staircase connecting all the floors. A fascinating helicoidal shape that, like a magic eye, observes you and draws you in. On its main floor, the tower's features are those of a defensive structure with loophole windows, drawbridge and moat. Interestingly, there is a well below the tower, which guaranteed survival in the event of an attack or siege. There was also a cistern, which they say was used as a prison cell. Also, there are vestiges of side entrances, witness to the tower's use as an air raid shelter. On the upper floors, if we compare them to other Valencian Gothic palaces, we see what could have been a study or room for official or economic uses, with lavishly decorated floors and ceilings. Floors for living and dining. Floors for sleeping or storing food. And floors for keeping watch. Over the centuries, the tower has had ample time to serve many uses. Fortunately for us, it has been returned to the public. Little by little, a greater awareness of and respect for memory and heritage has restored the former dignified grace of the tower. We may never know who drew on these walls. The ships, with people arriving in yachts or rowboats from the beaches, and the Quranic texts remind us of the unjust expulsion of Islamic peoples over 400 years ago. The artist was surely someone who didn't want anyone to forget who the ancient settlers were. From its extraordinary vantage point, the Benavites Tower will continue to watch over this landscape and country, overlooking the sea. A landscape, people and region for which the next 1,000 years will continue to appreciate and admire this tower, a part of the heritage of a people who respect, value and protect the legacy of its ancestors.